I wanted to kind of zoom out and talk about a couple of bigger things. So one from the distant past and one from the future. So this is the one from the past, really. So this is the Anthropocene. How many of you know that term? Does anyone? Okay. Right.
Human age.
Yeah, basically. So the point I really want to make with this is this idea of technology not being good or bad or neutral has always applied, really. So this is an Acheulean stone hand axe. It's one of the earliest tools that humanity's ever made. And it's kind of talked about as being the Stone Age Swiss Army knife because there's lots of things you can do with it. You can butcher with it, you can dig with it, you can do all manner of bits and pieces with it. And so that was kind of the first tool we had, and it had some fairly profound effects on what we could do. It meant that a whole range of foodstuffs were accessible to us that weren't previously. So if you can butcher an animal and you can cook an animal, so fire is obviously important as well here, then you have access to calories that you didn't previously had. And there are some people who argue that made a really profound difference to our evolution. I mean, it undoubtedly did. The question is how far. Richard Wrangham at Harvard thinks that being able to cook our food was a revolutionary moment for humankind, and it completely transformed the way that we go about the world. So a bit further down the line, you get this, which is a Neolithic jade axe. So this is from about 4,500 BC. It's actually, the jade is actually from Italy, from the Italian Alps. And it was found, I believe, in Canterbury. So this is 4,500 BC, but there's already an established trade network. There are people passing these things along. The other thing of note about it is it's not a functional tool. It's decorative. It's an object which someone spent a great deal of time making into something beautiful, but isn't actually usable particularly as an axe. So the Neolithic Revolution was definitely a watershed moment in our progress. You know, it was when we essentially developed agriculture. It's when we started to develop a material culture of the kind that leads us to essentially to where we are now, step by step by step. And so, you know, who could be against that, really? Our quality of our lives has improved and so on, and, you know. But agriculture in particular is not necessarily, you know, the unalloyed joy that you would think it was. Jared Diamond in 1987 called it the worst mistake that humanity had ever made. Now, he was exaggerating a bit, but his point was that actually agricultural, it seemed like a great idea, and it was a giant technological leap forward, and suddenly you didn't have to move around and all the rest of it. Actually, arguably, the health of early agriculturalists was worse than of the hunter-gatherers. They have less calorific intake. Because they started to live in larger groups, you got more people living crappier lives, basically. They had worse food, they lived together, their population grew, so that kind of made things worse. Diseases that had previously been, you know, sporadic or non-existent suddenly took hold, so all of the kind of disease, the zoonoses, the diseases from animals that we kind of suffer from to this day, flu, tuberculosis, plague, and so on, those kinds of big diseases that you all know, this was the sort of time when they became endemic in the human population. So, you know, agriculture clearly in many ways was good. You know, and it's led to where we are today, and it's led to settlement and civilization and so on. It's also bad because it led to disease and to population growth, and it's led to essentially the exploitation of resources on a large scale. So just to move on, so that's the Iron Age. During the Iron Age, once you've got an iron axe, you can start chopping down trees. When you start chopping down trees, you really start to change the landscape in which you live. I'm particularly proud of that one because that one's mine. I made that. That one on the right is a better example, but I'm proud of that one. So you can start chopping down trees, and that really does start to make a difference to the environment, to the ecosystem. The big beasts start to, you know, what big beasts are left start to die off. We already killed quite a lot of them with the flint stuff, but at this point, really, if you're a large animal, you've had it. Your territory's gone, your ecosystem's collapsing, and so on. Keep going. So then we get to this, which is machine looms. These are Luddites in the original sense of the term. So Luddites, incidentally, Luddites are commonly misunderstood. What Luddites were talking about was, what they were complaining about primarily was the distribution of the gains from technology, from mechanical technology, which kind of brings us back to the automation idea. It's not a protest against technology per se, which is the way that the term is used and used to dismiss concerns about those things now. It's about the economic distribution of gains from technology, and I think that's still a relevant question. So, and obviously at the point when this is happening, we're starting to industrialize, we're starting to use steam power, and that's when really that's the beginning of climate change, and that's the point at which we start to make an irrevocable difference to the planet. So the point of all this, really, actually I'll just get to this one. So the point of all this is that over the course of time, we've essentially taken over the planet. There is nowhere left on the planet now that is untouched by human, where it's impossible to tell that humans exist. Everywhere on the planet has a record of us. There are records in our geology, there are records in the soil strata, and that's why geologists kind of use this term, the Anthropocene, which is semi-official, to mean the age defined by humans. It's an age, roughly speaking. It's not an official term. I think it will become one. One of the points of argument really is whether it started in that era of deforestation with the iron axes, whether it started with the steam power in the Industrial Revolution, or whether it started before all of that, because there's actually quite good evidence to say this actually started a long, long time ago when we first started to get rid of the very large predators that we share the environment with. And this is roughly where we are now. This is the West Pilbara mine in Australia, if I remember correctly. Salient point about this is kind of 3 stories high. It takes 500 tons of ore and it's a robot, so there's no driver in that. That's just a machine that trundles up out of the mine, dumps its ore, and then goes back down again. So that's where we are now. So the Anthropocene, you know, that's essentially where we've got to through the progress of technology. And at every step of the way, it's been this good, bad, neutral thing. You know, good, our standards of living go up. It's not necessarily great for the planet, and it stores up problems for the future. And you know, at the moment, we're having the hottest year on record by some measure. That's kind of where we've got to. Got to. Got to. Got to. Got to. Got to.